because everything takes time and takes patience. There's very seldom overnight deals that happen in real estate, at least on a regular basis. Everything, in my experience, needs to be tailored towards the long term.
So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Real Estate Rockstars. This is Aaron Amuchastegui. Hey, I get to interview one of my good friends again. I've had him on the show a couple times. We met on the show. So I call Elliot my friend because we met on the show and we get to chat online and keep up with each other. But this is Elliot Hoyte you're out in Idaho, right?
Boise, Idaho, yeah, by way of England.
Boise, Idaho, by way of England. Yes, he doesn't sound like other people from Idaho. Often you moved out here to play football, right?
I did, yeah. I played football at Boise State back in 2012 was when I moved and decided America was cool enough to stick around. So here I am.
Yeah, you played football on the blue field, right? Is that Boise? Is that the... Yeah,
it's the Gorpin blue field. Everyone has a problem with it, but you get used to it after a while, so it never really bothered me.
Yeah, you get used to it. It's that home field advantage. What a unique... I remember when... I have a couple different sports teams. My favorite, the Ducks, anytime somebody gets beat up on that field, they blame the field.
Oh yeah, that's the excuse. That back when we played you guys in 2010, it wasn't when I was on the team. They printed these T-shirts that said "The myth is true: Ducks do crash on the blue." Yeah, there was this myth that went around where ducks would fly into the blue and die because they thought it was a pond. So yeah,
yes, that is exactly what happened. And they blame the blue. You can't blame the football. You can't blame the play calling. It's the blue field makes everything more difficult. So we've had you on the show a couple times, right? We've had you on when we first interviewed you when you hit 30 under 30. And we got to talk a lot about, how your business grew. And really you shared the story about listening to the podcast before you were even licensed, right? To come on. And when I got to call you about getting you on for the 30 under 30, it was an awesome moment for both of us. Pretty special. And then we had you back on, I think right after COVID, we were doing a how to get your offer accepted kind of mastermind with a bunch of us. And then I had reached out to you a few months ago and said, hey, let's have you on again. Let's talk about news. Let's talk about what's been going on. But let's do kind of an overview of the last couple of years, right? So early 2020, we have you on the show. What has been the transition in your business since then? And what's the big thing you've learned in the last couple of years? Because the market's been getting tougher and tougher. It's more and more competition. What are some of the things you've learned over the last years and transitions you've been making?
Yeah. So I guess to recap, 2019, I was an individual agent on my own. Did in a market where our average purchase price was in the 400s. I did just over 9 million. Second year, added an assistant and kind of created a kind of a smaller team. We had 23 million done. Average purchase price was up about 50K. And then this last year, it was 32 million with the team. On a $540,000 average purchase price. So since 2020, through the pandemic, business has only gotten better for me. So I've gone from a team, and now as of about 2 weeks ago, I have my own brokerage. So the Hoyte Group is no longer just a team. It is my brokerage. And I took my team with me from the old brokerage we were at, and that's kind of been the transition. That's been the big major thing. Obviously, the volume goes up, and if you're doing your job, the volume goes up naturally. But the biggest thing has now been becoming a brokerage, and that's been the huge transition I've gone through the past couple of weeks here. And I'm learning every day, even more so than I was before. There's a lot more entailed for sure. So,
yeah, I mean, real estate agents are always entrepreneurs. Sometimes we learn that after you sign up to be an agent. Like sometimes people are like, wait, a commission only means like you're an entrepreneur, like you are responsible for your own income, and you have to learn, and there's different things you can do to get better. And then as a broker, yes, it's a whole nother step of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, some of those things. You've got the new office behind you, the new spot in Boise. So you were fairly new as an agent when kind of the pandemic hit and real estate got competitive, where all of a sudden there was nothing on the market and people out there. How did you set yourself apart? Because it's an amazing story to say, hey, it's only gotten better through the pandemic, but the pandemic also ruined some real estate businesses. Like, how did you set yourself apart? How did you continue to grow when you didn't have a giant foundation? Some of the people I've interviewed, people are like, hey, they were giant when that hit. And so like the rich get richer, right? The people that were great got greater, but you were doing good, but you were still new at real estate. What sets you apart?
I think it's the mindset. Obviously, there's outgoing things as far as what you do with clients, which is, that has to be different. But when you look at it internally and the things you can truly control, it's the mindset. I always had the mindset, even when I, haven't been as good or as experienced. You have to go in with it thinking that you are the best of the best, because you need that mindset to convince your client that you're the viable choice for them, whether they're buying or selling. Not allowing the conditions to be an excuse or dictate the reasons why you can't do something is important too. For me, especially as an athlete, I saw this market as a challenge. Like, I enjoy it. I love, the more offers we go up against, the better, to an extent sometimes, because it kind of gives you that sense of, okay, it's time to go to work. A lot of people, a lot of agents can be deterred by competitive situations. And for me, it's just a mentality of going in and not having to worry. I think that mindset of worrying holds people back from making so many decisions in life in general. But as an agent, you can't allow the unknowns to kind of worry you. You have to have that confidence and just know that, hey, you can only do your best, right? You can only set the expectation for your client as much as you can. You can only put in an offer as strong as they're able to do. So it's mindset, Aaron. It really is mindset. You can't let it overpower you.
Yeah. Do you think that was from football?
100% from football. Yeah. That's been, I think I said it before the last couple of times I was on. I'm definitely a dumb jock at heart, but I think part of being a dumb jock is it makes you very resilient, because we would spend hours a day and hours, a week preparing to play a game. And there's no guarantee that when you play a football game, you're going to win, but you still prepare regardless anyway. And that's the same approach I take when I'm helping clients, especially with buyers and putting in offers. There's no guarantee that this offer we're going to submit is going to win, but we're going to do our dang best to make sure it's as strong as possible so we can. And that's the mentality I take into every single situation there. So,
yeah, I think anytime we can create competition in our lives, it does. I mean, two things happen. Sometimes people quit. Sometimes they don't like to lose and want to play the game. And other times they step up to go, I'm going to a competition. I want to be the best I can be. I want to win. Like, people want to win. And if you have the attitude that you want to win, you work harder, you prepare harder, and then you start to expect to win. And I think that is one of the secrets to like the snowball effect, to where confidence spreads. When stuff got rough, when COVID first hit, we talked about when people get stressed out, like bad news spreads fast, right? But so does encouragement and so does confidence. So when they're seeing the news, everything's going bad, like that can spread, or confidence can spread too. So it's pushing as a leader with that confidence. So now you've got your brokerage, you've got your team, you've got your people that like look up to you. How do you, and there's probably even some listeners out there that are like, that's great. Okay. I want to be competitive, but how do you give them pep talks? Or do you tell them the same thing? Like, how do you make them know that they're ready to be competitive too?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, I pretty much share all my knowledge with anyone that is willing to ask or listen, whether they're inside my building or not, because at the end of the day, you can have the knowledge, but the actual ability or willingness to implement it is different person to person. I could give someone the keys to the kind of the what's the word, I guess, like the car to drive it, but not everyone's going to drive it. So when I meet with my guys, 100%, we definitely talk about the same things that I just mentioned. I think that it can be hard sometimes for people to understand things the same way that I do. And a lot of that comes to the way that I communicate it to people, and to my guys at least, because everyone has a different kind of mindset how they approach things. But with that being said, if you have a different mindset, you have different things that you're better at, you have to just tailor the way that you work with your clients to those strengths. You have to always be improving, but let's take a look. I talk to my guys, let's take a look at what you're good at. What are you good at? We do need to improve the things that maybe you're not so strong at, but let's figure out a way to make the things you're good at a weapon that's going to help your client in those situations. So it's kind of tailoring it. I can't give them a blanket, kind of speech. This is the way to get it done. It's really, let's look at what your skill set is and see how we can figure out how that's going to work in this market. So yeah, that's the way I deal with it.
How to get the most out of it. So how are you getting most of your leads right now? Are you mostly listings, mostly buy side? How do you generate growth? I'm
glad that you brought it up. So I spent a long 6 weeks really digging deep into where we are at and where we need to get to. You have to obviously know where you're at to know where you want to get to, right? And I looked at all the numbers. I mean, I'm talking really in depth here. I was talking to the guys, okay, where did you get this lead from? How did this convert? Yada, yada, yada. Kept everything, in this kind of spreadsheet. And I came to learn that basically 96% of the business we've created is organic. And by that, I mean not paid. So referrals, repeat clients, any organic way, which is great. I mean, if we did 60 transaction size last year as a team off of organic growth, that's great. But to get to the next level, we really need to start looking at the paid stuff. So I am hiring a marketing director, this week after conducting several interviews to help us look at where we're at and where we want to get to. And their job is going to be, okay, these are the actionable steps in the plan to get from where you are to where you want to get to. So we're going to start spending a lot more money on paid advertising, but strategic paid advertising. We're not just going to be throwing money at, the latest, greatest, shiny thing. We're going to look at like an omni-channel system, looking at social media, looking at mailers, and, being as diverse as we can and being very, very precise with where we market to. So that's how we're going to take it from where we are right now to where we want to get to.
Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui for a quick commercial break. So during 2020 and 2021, the real estate market completely changed. There's so much competition in the market, so many people trying to buy and sell houses, but there's hardly any supply, hardly any product, hardly anyone willing to list their homes. It's time for every agent out there to become a hybrid agent investor, to be able to reach out directly to homeowners to try to get them to sell or list their house. We've got a new website. Go to leadpropeller.com and you can set up your own investor buyer website in just minutes. You'll set up your own URL, set up phone numbers, help go through to leads, help reach out to people that aren't listing their property currently, and have them fill out a form that says, hey, I want to sell my house. And then as an agent, you can go through and make them a hybrid offer. You can tell them, hey, I think your house would sell for $220,000 on MLS, but I can either write you a $180,000 cash offer right now, or I can help you fix it up and you'll list it for $220,000 on MLS. These are buyers that are looking for quick cash offers. Tens of thousands are submitting these forms every single day, and they're skipping the listing process. But so many of you guys out there are such good agents. It's a great opportunity to get that lead and help them maximize sales price for their home. So again, go to leadpropeller.com and think about signing up for your own investor site so buyers will start reaching out to you, asking you to make an offer on their home. Yeah. And maybe you're going to have these answers in like a week or two instead. But so when you go out to market your team, what do you tell people they're getting instead? Like what is the Elliot Hoyte team? Like what's your big brand difference?
The difference that I say, it's almost cliche. It's giving an experience of excellence. It's doing more. The standard, unfortunately, at least in our market, isn't really as high as I think it probably should be as far as agent services to clients. The idea is that we're doing more, which in turn, for a listing, for example, is going to get them more exposure, which means they're making more money. And then for a buyer on the other side, they don't need to worry as much. They know that they're having everything handled because you have a team of people that are doing the extra stuff. We are communicating with title. We're doing things that we know are going to make your life easier. I think some of the roadblocks, whether you're an experienced buyer or seller or not, doesn't always make a huge difference. People worry about, well, this is a stressful situation. I have to worry about this. I have to worry about that. The idea is we're taking the worry off of the table for them through experience and through having multiple people that are involved in kind of the stewardship of your transaction from beginning to end. There's definitely strength in numbers in that regard. So we do talk about the strength of the team. And just doing more and working harder. I mean, without going into exact specifics, I could be here for hours if we talked about every single step. It's really about having a much more robust plan and having contingencies within those plans for listings, for example, for buyers. This is how we're going to do it. And then the other one that I talk about is, is setting expectations. We do a much better job than the average team or agent of setting the expectations. When you set expectations for clients and they know that they're going to have expectations set, they kind of know how to act within a transaction. I think a lot of the time that can be lost. So we always talk about, okay, we're going to help you set realistic expectations so you don't feel let down. Because I think a lot of people are let down during a transaction because they don't have those expectations set. So that's kind of what we talk about with our clients.
Yeah. So what made you want to just open your own brokerage?
I think personal development was the number one reason. I definitely, although the numbers were rising, month to month and year to year for the most part, I definitely felt like I needed to challenge myself even more. I think that when you get kind of stuck in a rut where you kind of do the same thing repetitively, which real estate can be, although every client's different, by and large, the DNA of a transaction is the same. I really needed to have a different challenge that would kind of push me to get to kind of where I wanted to get to. And also, it comes down to value as well. I felt that in this point in my career where, I already have, when things are running full capacity, having 2 full-time employees, there's only so much that I believe a brokerage can do for you that you maybe can't do for yourself once you get to a certain level of experience. I wanted to have a little bit more control over how my money was being spent that I was paying into the brokerage. And the only way you can do that is, when you own your own brokerage, you can call the shots. You can't call the shots of someone else's brokerage. So it was, personal development, and then having a little bit more freedom as to, okay, this is where I'm going to spend my money. There's only so much money you can spend, and if it's going towards brokerage splits and you don't get to really dictate how that comes back to your business, there's only one way you can do it. And I feel like that is to kind of blaze your own path, so to speak.
Yeah. I was recently talking to somebody that put up a billboard, and everybody on the team was on it. And one of the team members was unhappy with the billboard, right? Wanted a different picture, wanted a different way. And we're like, why didn't you ask? And I think the question was, well, do you want me to take you off the billboard? It was like, no, I want to be on there, but I would have liked some different, right? There's so many different points of like brokerage money that gets spent for marketing. The way you get your biggest vote is you start the brokerage. You take the risk. You take the risk of that expense all the way through, and then you get to put your money where your mouth is, right? As you start up this new business and see what you can make happen.
100%. And it's a little bit different for us too. So the way that I'm running my brokerage isn't really in the traditional brokerage model where you have a designated broker or an owner and you kind of bring in as many good agents as you can, try and develop them as much as you can. And then obviously you're making profit off of what agents sell. I'm still I wouldn't even consider it the peak of my career as far as sales goes. I've brought guys in, that are on my team, and we're operating like a team, and they're really supportive. I'm helping them definitely grow some of the stuff they're doing, but they're really supporting the initiatives I already put in place. So I continue to grow my business. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in my market that have been interested in joining the brokerage. And I've told them no, because I really feel like I can't give them the value that they were probably looking for, which is tough because from a business perspective, just the numbers, you can make money off of this. To me, it has to be more about than just making the money. If I can't bring these people value, it doesn't make sense. I'm in a phase where I'm still growing my business, and that's where I want to put my attention for right now. Yeah.
What do you think the market's going to do this year?
That's the $1 trillion question. In Boise, at least, I can't really talk globally, I guess, or nationally more specifically. In Boise, the Boise market, the Treasure Valley market here between Ada and Canyon County, things have already started to heat up the last probably couple of weeks. There was this seasonality again that we hadn't seen for the last 2 years. Normally in our market, you'd see seasonality. You have the spring and the summer that tend to be more active. The kind of winter months are a little bit, but maybe it's weather, I don't know, aren't as active. And this was the first time since I think about 2018 or 19 where things were more seasonal. And everyone was worrying, well, in 2020, we saw this craziness, and every single month that went by, whether it's December or June, was the same. Multiple offers, things were nuts. And then all of a sudden, I think around about October time, things kind of took a turn, and we were seeing homes sit on the market for longer. We're seeing, it sounds crazy, I guess, to some markets, but we were seeing in Boise like 30 plus days on the market when we're used to seeing 2 or 3. You could put a home up on a Thursday or Friday and it was gone by Sunday evening. All of a sudden we're seeing, 30 plus days on market, and people were worrying, oh, is the world going to fall apart? And we had, 2 or 3 months there where things were sitting longer. And now all of a sudden I listed a home just last week or the week before last. And it was in the 400 price point, which had remained relatively competitive, but we were still seeing things sit on the market. And all of a sudden I had a total of 9 offers within 2 days, all well above asking. And I'm hearing anecdotally from other agents that I'm in touch with and just participating in the market, we're seeing multiple offer situations again. So my prediction for this year, I think, based on what I'm seeing already, it's going to be much the same as last year in our market, heading from this February through to kind of towards the end of the year, just based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah. I think it's feeling like that in a lot of different places. I know that the financial markets have been challenging for a lot of high net worth individuals over the past few months. I'm curious to see how that plays out in real estate, because I've had a few conversations with people that are, not making the lavish expense that they were going to. Now, in some categories, it's like they're not going to buy the jet they were going to buy. They're not going to buy the second or third or fourth home they were going to buy. But trying to figure out how that really trickles down to the idea that still so there's been a lot of like kind of fear in the markets of stuff will slow down, but still most of the people buying houses are people trying to buy a house to live in. And there still is a shortage of demand, a shortage of supply, compared to the demand. And it'll be the big bet. And every year in January, I try to give myself a 12-month period. What am I going to bet on? What would I bet on with the real estate market? How am I going to push forward that way? And I think it's going to stay strong for buyers, and we'll see what the other push is, as we always guess on here, and people, or everyone guesses themselves. We all wish we had that crystal ball, but real estate is, I think the one thing that I know I can hang my hat on is 20 years from now, houses will be worth more than they are today. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, inflation, if anything else.
Yeah, probably the stock market too. Stock market will be worth more 20 years from now. House will be worth 20 years from now. I don't quite know how to bet much further out, but I try to do these shorter term things too. Personal development stuff. Have you done any travels over the past year to go to like masterminds or training conferences? What are the things that you've done to try to get some extra strategies from people outside your market area?
Business wise, I haven't done anything in the last year. I've taken more personal time, just from a holistic kind of a whole life approach. I know that I need to take more personal time off, but I haven't. And I'm looking forward this year. I was actually just talking with one of my agents just before we hopped onto this call here. And we're going to definitely do 2 this year. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to do. We haven't done anything in the last year. We definitely want to, because I think being insular is not a great thing. It's good to kind of get out these other markets. So I don't know if we've announced it yet or you've announced it, but I know that I'm going somewhere in March coming up here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about that or...
Yeah, no, we just locked in our dates for the mastermind, for the Austin mastermind. I hope you can make it. So March 2nd and 3rd, we're going to do our mastermind in Austin to try to get a whole bunch of people together like this for us to be able to, essentially there's rock stars all over, right, that are crushing it in real estate. And we want to be able to come share different ideas and get to like we've done on the podcast, but being able to get heads together, saying what's really working for you over here, and then what's really challenging you. Because the reality, when you get a room together of a bunch of superstars and you go, this is our biggest challenge we're facing. And somebody else goes, I had that challenge last year and this is how we attacked it. And someone else goes, I had that challenge also, and this is how we attacked it. And the amazing stuff that you see come out of that, like yes, I definitely want our Real Estate Rockstars Austin Mastermind to be your first one. When you came down here for the F1 races, and you didn't like many of Texas's hamburgers, it looked like from
come on.
System, all right, all of the Texas hamburgers were overrated, but how did F1 do?
F1 was great. We can go back to the hamburgers, but F1, I'm going to get slaughtered by the South if I start talking about Whataburger. I know that for sure. At least if I talk about it negatively. F1 was awesome. So being born and raised in England, Formula One is, one of our kind of top sports. And that was actually my first Formula One race. They're not cheap to attend. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a position now to be able to do that. And it was incredible. Austin, though, is no joke. That heat, I didn't know it was possible to get. I mean, I'm of a darker complexion. I didn't know it was possible to burn, but I did slightly. It was 100. It was, I think it was like high 90s at one point.
Yeah, it was brutal weather, and it's also that sun gets really hot. And I think so much of the F1 seating was kind of just being out in the middle of nowhere. A lot of real estate agents came out for that one. My next after our one in March, my next real estate mastermind is going to have to be right around those F1 races, because 100%. There were dozens of superstars like you guys that were all out here. And I was thinking, man, we could have done a reunion not at Whataburger. We'll go to one of the other spots. I enjoyed getting to follow along when you were out here, because every day you would go test out a different place and go, okay, so everybody says this is awesome. And in general, most of your answers were like, this was okay. This was pretty good, but it's really fun as people get to come. Was it your first time in Texas?
That was my first time in Texas, not in an airport. So it was kind of cool. I know Austin's different to Houston and some of those other places that people hear about. But no, I loved it. Austin's, it was even bigger than I realized. I had no idea how sprawling Austin is. Everyone talks about how Boise is supposed to be similar to Austin, or it's the next Austin. And I always thought Boise was pretty big and sprawling. I go to Austin, I'm like, Austin seems 8 times the size of Boise, which gives me encouragement from a real estate perspective, because we've got a lot of room to grow. But yeah, I'm excited to come, in March and take a look and get to see Austin more, because we were doing a Formula One experience, which meant they pick us up early, take us to Coda, Circuit of America's there, and drop us off, and then they come and get us late. So I didn't really get to experience Austin a whole lot outside of Whataburger. So I heard the barbecue's good. So I need to get involved in that.
We will do some barbecue when you come back out, or we'll have lots of fun stuff. Yeah, that was the challenge. I'm messaging him like, hey, when can we hang out? And it was like coffee before 7 over here, because yes, you were so busy as you guys were packed in when you're out there. Hey, real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Buchastegi, and I'm interrupting myself to bring you this commercial break from one of our sponsors. And I know you guys would much rather listen to the content and not the ads and not the sponsors, but this is one that I'm actually super, super excited with. So many of the realtors that we interview on the show, they talk about how much systems are important and how much follow-up is important. And I'm really, really excited about our new sponsor. There's somebody I've been looking at for a long time. And when they reached out to me, I said, yes, we have to be able to do this deal. So that sponsor is Follow Up Boss. On an interview last week with agent Mark McGuire, I asked him what his favorite software and what his favorite system was. And he said it was Follow Up Boss. And then he went on for another 3 or 4 minutes to talk about why Follow Up Boss was the best CRM he uses. So there's a lot of superstars out there that use Follow Up Boss. Some of the stats they gave me: Robert Slack, 1.5 billion team in Florida, #1 in the US. He uses Follow Up Boss to get a 400% ROI on his massive paid lead spend. Deborah Beagle, co-owner of the Ashton Group in Nashville, uses Follow Up Boss to guarantee that agents who join her team get 2 homes under contract in the first 90 days. That's a big guarantee for new agents. Barry Jenkins of Your Friends in Real Estate uses Follow Up Boss to automate everything so his team can produce $200 million on 25-hour work weeks. All right, so here's an offer. You guys are going to get this special for being Real Estate Rockstars listeners. Now, I've used Follow Up Boss. We've actually used it in our non-real estate businesses as well, because it's so good at being able to set timers, set automatic texting and emailing, and what do you know? Best name ever, Follow Up. So here's what we got. For Real Estate Rockstars listeners, you get a 30-day free trial. That's normally 14 days. So in order to get this, you go followupboss.com/rockstars. So again, followupboss.com, just like it sounds, /rockstars. Go there, get your 30-day free trial, and check it out. Especially if you aren't using any systems or any CRMs yet, this will be a great one for you to start with. All right, everybody, thanks again. Now back to our show. Some people, so you went from, you pretty quickly built a team and grew that team, and your team has been like, you guys have really good interactions. It feels like you're really in sync. How did you do that? How did you pick the right team members? If somebody's ready to bring people on, was there any strategy in that? What advice would you give to somebody that says, all right, I'm ready to go from being on a team to starting a team, or I'm ready to go from solo to having team members? What was that first step like? What advice would you give?
The most important thing is having people that share your values, who are good people. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to have the same core beliefs as far as, politics or whatever it happens to be. It's about people that align with your beliefs and what you want to do in life. And for me, that is, treating people right and having fun while doing it, at a very surface level there. I just have good people around me. And the way I went about it was, obviously, when you interview, when you're looking to bring people onto your team or to your brokerage, you have to look at the business side. What skills do they have, and how much money can they potentially bring in, revenue, sales, whatever it happens to be. But I've always been of the mindset, and will continue to be, you should never put the money before the quality of the person. Money can do some weird things to people, and it can make people make weird decisions, which can affect the dynamics of your team. So while obviously everyone comes to work to make money, the biggest thing is having good quality people. So whenever I have hired and I'm looking to hire, I definitely put a lot of weight in, is this a good person? Do they share the values, because when times are tough and you have to work stuff out, if you can't communicate and the person isn't really vibing with you, it's very easy to kind of fall out of synergy and have issues that you are hard to work through. I'll give you a couple of examples. Right, an example. We've recently been hiring for a marketing director. Had over 40 applicants, and took a while to get through them. Had some interviews, and there was one candidate in particular that probably ticked all the skills boxes, but I definitely had questions about their character, and they probably could have brought in several $1 million more of production just based on their ability to market and do things. But they had a very questionable character. And I decided to pass up on that because it's not worth compromising, in my head, money for something that's going well. And when I say going well, there's more things to a business and a team going well than just a production. It definitely is how you interact with your people. So that's the biggest thing I'd say is the quality of the person is the most important thing. And you have to look for that. And only you know what that looks like, Aaron. It's not like there's a book or a manual for it. We all have different beliefs and we all have different ways of doing things. But they have to definitely jive with the ethos you're trying to push out as a team, business, or brokerage.
Yeah. Yeah. Culture, right? It's like that company culture and who can hang out. I learned it the hard way a couple of times building up some of my businesses, that hiring the wrong people that like really irked other people wrong. Like just like, just the way they spoke or the way they something just made it tougher for other people to do their job right. Right. And it wasn't really fair to anybody in that process, but people that were productive and efficient before were becoming less productive and less efficient because of the interactions. And it's really hard to go like, wow, I couldn't imagine that if this person looks great on paper and these three people are doing great, and this person who looks great on paper should be able to interact with them well. But just by the way they carry themselves, the way they talk, and so much more so now, whenever we're hiring, the resume is almost like the smallest part of it. It's who could stand hanging around with us, who could stand hearing some of the conversations that we have, and be okay with that, and be like, this is a fun place to come work. Who can work for a guy that's as weird and crazy as me? Like when they see my personality and all the other stuff, they got to be okay with the guy with a cryo machine in his house, and just like some of the random crazy stuff.
I saw that on your Instagram, the story this morning, actually, the cryo machine. Now it makes sense. I was trying to figure out where you're at, but it's in the house. So that's efficiency right there.
It is efficiency. So so that's one of my random things, right? So getting nitrogen delivered over at the house. I've had assistants before that were like, what? And so I got to find assistants that are okay with doing random stuff. Like I broke my ribs playing volleyball of all things, early 2020, I want to say. So at that time I was really getting into golf, wanting to golf a lot, broke my ribs, and so couldn't golf, couldn't do anything while we were out playing volleyball, and nothing was like working to help it. And I went to go to a cryotherapy office and went in and did cryotherapy. And for the next 3 hours, I didn't feel anything in my ribs. And you stand in this container, they fill it with liquid nitrogen, they take it to -250, -260. And it does these amazing like healing things to your body. And so for that week, I was like going into cryotherapy every day, because when I would go, I'd have about 3 hours of not feeling any pain in my ribs. And broken rib pain is like the craziest, silliest thing, because you can't really do anything. There's nothing you can do to heal it or make it faster. And it just like makes you tender. So during that process, I started researching, and then, 2020 starts to hit, stuff gets crazy. I started looking for cryotherapy companies going out of business. And on that search, I was able to find a heck of a deal for a cryotherapy machine. So yeah, my wife and I do it every day. It's almost every day, added to our health regimen. You burn calories. It helps you feel young. It helps you do all this other stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got to take care of your body. Being a former athlete, I know that even if you're not an athlete and you're working day to day, you don't exercise, don't take care of that thing, right? It has knock-on effects. So that's dedication I haven't seen before from a civilian, so to speak. So that's great.
Yeah, anything we can do to keep our brain healthy, keep our body healthy, helps us do better business, helps us do more business. Some of the things that people do to scale, I mean, it's a whole different conversation, right? Of what we can do to like. When we have energy and our brain is smart and we're feeling good and we're well fed, we are going to make better businesses. You're going to get another deal, right? That's like the idea of how much time do you spend, making meals compared to whatever, like what's that time? So there's a lot of ways that kind of life hack and helps build out. When you look into next year, And this is so much stuff like when we get to the mastermind, right? We're going to be asking people, what's your biggest goal for the year? And what's your biggest challenge for that? Now, putting you on the spot, in front of hundreds of thousands of people here, have you thought about that stuff? Because right now you just looked at your stats and you said, wow, 90-something% of our stuff is organic. Have you thought about this is the one thing I want to do this year to grow, or the second thing I want to do this year to grow, or something that we've tried before that hasn't worked? Like anything come to mind?
So I got some quantifiable stuff on the marketing side. I had to pull the document up that I put together. But one of the big things is being able to create in-house mailers. So it's not a goal as such, I suppose, but it's something. It's a tool that we want to add to the repertoire. It's definitely a strategy. Yeah. So I just invested in a $32,000 production printer for kind of the long haul here. Because it's just economies of scale. It's business, right? When you can produce stuff in-house, you're not outsourcing for the most part. Things tend to be cheaper and more efficient, and efficiency is huge. Before, we were having to send all our mailers out to a third party, and the turnaround time was, the soonest was 4 days from them receiving it to getting out. And when you're trying to, plan stuff out, and especially with listings, having stuff, that needs to be sent quickly, there's definitely something to be said for that efficiency of being able to do it in house. So that's one of the kind of the implementation things that's been a goal for us, and that should be up and running the next couple of weeks here. For us as a quantifiable goal, I'd like to increase the paid. So if I'm attributing where leads come from, where closed deals come from, we'd like to increase that by over 20%, as far as being able to say, okay, 80% of our business comes from organic and 20% of it comes from paid methods. That's what we'd like to do, because I know that, I think, like I said earlier, to take it to the next level, it's going to take a very targeted effort to increase those sales numbers. So that's one of our goals for sure for 2022. Yeah. So
I think those are great examples. And when you think about like how to make something good better, like you're doing mailers, but if you can get them 4 days faster, like what a difference that makes. So many people on the podcast, we've talked about that. And then, paid growth, there is, I remember my first mastermind with GoBundance, really the biggest one I've ever been a part of. I remember getting in there and starting to talk about things like that. At that time, we wanted to do Facebook leads to try to get people to sell us their house as investors. Right. And it was so cool to see several guys raise their hand and go, yeah, we're all doing this. And we've tried it, because at that time, like it was essentially, you figure it out yourself. People are trying out themselves. But then when the 6 or 7 of us got to get together and go, these are the ads that I find work. These are the ads that I find work. And it was so funny. One of the things we figured out is if we misspelled things in like the highlight summary, we had more people click on our ads and on our videos. Or when we're walking through a house, and I don't look very good, it's just me on a phone walking in one take and some stuff is misspelled, more people would like click that ad on Facebook to sell us their house than when it was a nice professional video, like in a room talking about it. So getting to experiment with all sorts of fun things like that, I think it's definitely going to be one of our topics at the mastermind too, is paid, essentially paid ads, paid leads.
Yeah. Yeah. How is it? Yeah, that's definitely something we need to talk about, because it's an ever evolving thing, right? It's like, what works 1 month on Facebook advertising doesn't work in 6 months' time. Same with mailers. We kind of go through these trends. So yeah, I'd love to know more about that and what's been successful for other people in other markets, because it's just constantly adapting. There doesn't seem to be one size fits all kind of deal, right? It's always moving. It's always changing.
Yeah. And there's so many different types. There's like Zillow lead services. There's realtor.com lead services. There's all these different places that are doing it too. And I think there's strategies that kind of combine all of it. Like these people hand you the lead, but they take 60% of the deal. These people are hitting top of funnel, and we're going to, capture this many percent of them at the beginning, and we're going to add them to our drip. And over time, like some of these leads you advertise to are going to become a lead in a year, because they're on your, whatever campaign stuff. I think those are really fun things to get to see goals on. What's one thing, and maybe the answer is the same as the first couple times. What's something you wish you knew about real estate when you first started that you know now? Something I wish I knew about real estate.
I could probably write a book. I could probably write a book on the things that I know now that I wish I'd known before. But I think the biggest one is probably the patience. I'm trying to think how to word this where it makes sense. I think it's a long-term deal, right? It's a long-term deal for any agent that does, mainly kind of resale. That's not, on necessarily the new construction side of stuff, which is we do a lot of resale, is the patience that this career needs. And I have to remind myself every day, even though I technically know it, I wish I'd known it in the beginning, because I think I spent a lot of time talking myself out of opportunities in the beginning, because I was like looking for instant results. I was like, I need to just get a deal done this week or next week or whatever. And a lot of that's a byproduct of you kind of need money, because in the beginning it can be tough. But I wish I had known that it's about the long term, because I would have acted more on things and planted more seeds in the beginning. And I also wouldn't have been so hard to push people to make contact with me or talk about real estate in some regards, because I needed to know, hey, it takes time. You have to kind of earn the right to nurture these contacts and these people and these transactions, because everything takes time and takes patience. There's very seldom overnight deals that happen in real estate, at least on a regular basis. Everything, in my experience, needs to be tailored towards the long term. So I wish I'd known that things are long term for the most part, and it takes patience. I wish I'd known those things.
Yeah, it's so right, man, because we're alive a long time. And the brand goes around a long time. And the way, I'll never forget how many times like agents would be total jerks to us in transactions. And then 6 months later, we would have another house we're selling and they're coming back. And they're so short-sighted in the way that a lot of real estate can be done, where it's like, you weren't thinking that when you cussed us out a couple months ago, it was going to, now it's hurting your client. Now it's literally hurting your current client, because if your offer is the same, we're choosing the agent we like better because you've ruined it. You have some example. You have an example.
I could. Yeah. I mean, I obviously never want to name names. I have so many interaction situations where that happens, and agents just don't have the basic courtesy. This is actually one, I guess, when I'm on the buying side, but I was working a transaction with one of my agents here, and we put in an offer. And it's just the little things. I think it's just the way people conduct themselves. They forget that they can be on the other side sometimes. So obviously, if you're listing a property in a hot market, things tend to be maybe a little bit easier than on the buy side. We submitted an offer on this property, and the agent never really got back to us. I don't think they even acknowledged actually that we sent an offer over. They marked the house as pending within, I think, like a 24-hour period after receiving what they said were multiple offers. And the worst part was, the client found out, because they're on the save search deal, and it lets them know when something goes pending. So here they submitted an offer, and they find out that their offer wasn't accepted because that happened, not because we got a chance to tell them. And I don't know, it's a really small thing, but you talk about kind of like longevity and whatnot. You don't forget those things. And it's just nice to have an agent reach out and say, hey, even if they're not going to counter offer you, they're going to say, hey, it didn't get accepted for whatever reason. Because reputation is huge, and that kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you go to deal with that agent again. It kind of makes you second guess how things are going to happen. So whenever I list a property, for that reason, having gone through that several times before, I'll always reach out to every single agent that submitted an offer into their client, even if we didn't send them a counter offer. And before I mark it as pending in our MLS, I will send them an email at a minimum that says, thank you so much for submitting the offer, being grateful for it, and saying that, seller went another direction. As long as they allow me to disclose those reasons why, I will, because I think it's good to kind of help the other side and let them know why their offer wasn't strong. And I like to think that, we talk about the long term. I like to think that helps my reputation, because people are, Elliot's at least a half decent dude. He at least lets us know the reason why. And that seems like a really small thing, Aaron. It's like a tiny little thing, I feel like, but it seems to have gone well for us, because we don't see it very often on the other side, because people aren't thinking, let's at least give common courtesy to the other side, because we're the listing agent. We're good. We'll be fine. Like, we got all the good stuff they wanted, but the tables could turn at any given moment. And I think people need to think about the long term for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. The tables can turn at any time. I've learned that the hard way so many times in my careers, of thinking, hey, this is the way it is, and it's going to be like this forever. And sometimes we can get caught up in that, and realizing that the person having the listing right now can be the buyer later. It's a relationship game, and there's a lot of people wanting to become agents, and distinguishing yourself as different is a big deal. And or that whole idea of that early lead, right? Nurturing a lead a little bit softer, knowing that you can be patient. This is almost like we said, like before, that person from the Facebook ad might be hiring you for something a year from now, if done right. Like, they get added to now they're in the sphere. They go from there to in the sphere. And then we know that is the long game as it pushes through. But I think that's really, really great advice. Are a lot of people moving to Boise? With the pandemic and the craziness, and Idaho is one of the lands of the free. I think I told you that during August 2020, we got in an RV. We went all over the place, and Idaho was the first place my kids got to go to an arcade. And they were like, yeah, we can go to the arcade. My son was 4 at the time. I was in the arcade with him till like midnight because he couldn't believe that now he could like be touching things and having fun. Like Idaho has been a place like, I'm sure attracting a lot of attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Idaho is one of the least regulated states in America, to my understanding, especially for business owners, which is huge given what's happening in other parts of the world. And I think it would definitely be ignorant to not believe that there's a lot of political reasons. And this is obviously a grown-up podcast. Idaho is more of a, definitely more of a conservative state. And that has led to a lot more things being open. And there's a lot of people, in Washington, California, Oregon, places on the West Coast have been a lot more strict and have, democratic leadership. And a lot of people that, don't believe that way have decided that, Idaho is kind of the place they'd like to explore because it allows them to do things that align better with their beliefs. And it's really weird because I'm not even an American citizen. I can't even vote. So I always use that as a preface so people understand I don't really have an affiliation, but I am grateful that things are the way they are in Idaho, at least right now when it comes to that stuff, because I know that it definitely helped. We're having Californians move up here in droves, and my business wouldn't be as successful, I think, if we didn't have that influx of people. So yeah, we're seeing people move up here all the time. And a lot of them really are shocked. And one of the things they say about Boise in particular, I'm going to plug Boise here a little bit, is how clean it is. So I guess I've just taken it for granted, but I've had a lot of clients from San Francisco and from Los Angeles. And these, I read the headlines in the news about the homelessness and how things with the streets are kind of a mess and stuff. And I kind of let it kind of roll off my back. I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. And I'm hearing the stories and people are coming here and they're genuinely shocked. They're like, well, there's no homeless people here and your streets are clean. And to me, it's like, again, it's a small thing. I'm like, well, isn't that how it is everywhere? And I guess not. So people love Idaho because it doesn't seem to have a lot of the negatives. Not everything's great. I understand that, but it seems to not have a lot of the negatives that people are dealing with in some of these bigger cities, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there are different things that are making people move all over the place, but I have seen the stats are an influx of people to Idaho for reasons just like that. We saw an influx of people to Texas over the past couple of years. And some people do the opposite. I have a friend that moved to Hawaii because he appreciated the restrictions. He wanted to go somewhere where he was like, I'm not going to get there. I'm not gonna have to worry about the stuff ever again as we see it. But we loved going to Idaho. It was fun out there. Elliot, this was fun. I mean, I'm going to see you in a month, hopefully, but people that want to reach out to you, they want to send you some Boise referrals. They want to hear more about your business or understand, get some ideas. What's the best place people can reach out to you?
I always say Instagram. I'm trying to hold up on the TikTok for right now because I'm thinking I'm older than the demographic, but Instagram's the way. So Elliot Hoyte, Elliot_Hoyte. So that's ELLIOT_HOYTE. Give me a follow and send me a message if you got anything out of that or this podcast, or if you have any questions or you want to connect or have referrals. Always looking for referral partners, and Instagram's the main way you can kind of keep up with me there. So I'd love to hear from you, other listeners.
Yeah, it's a great way to stay top of mind for referrals, especially. I had a couple people reach out to me recently of just going, hey, I've got a friend moving to Texas. So, what's the agent I can refer them to over there? And then I'm looking on my social media feed to see who do I know in that town that's doing that business as we get there. And if you guys are fans of shoes, if you like shoes, if you like Jordans, you're going to definitely want to, or awesome cars. You're going to want to follow Elliot because he has one of the best Jordan shoe collections I've seen, and that's probably being small-minded. There's a lot more shoes that he has out there that he shares. And then I even started looking into a bunch of custom Defenders after seeing some of the stuff.
Oh, you saw that stuff? Yeah, I actually got the Audi R8 and the Porsche GT3 RS. I don't have those anymore. I kind of minimized some of the headaches in my life and I got rid of those guys. So now I just have the Land Rover Defender. It's a 1991, so it's actually older than me. And I just got a 1983 Classic Mini. And yes, I do fit in it barely. But yeah, I kind of went the classic route for a little bit here,
Yeah, those things are so much fun. So, well, Elliot, I always like chatting to you. Thanks for coming on and providing value as always. Congratulations on your new brokerage. Very cool stuff. And Real Estate Rockstars, thanks for listening. All right, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show.
Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also, we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in two different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronamuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.